we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
We're episode 4.
Ba, ba, ba,
Is that the new
ghosts.
interview?
That's the starting song.
So I'm really excited about today's episode because I think this was the episode, or this was the investigation that for me kind of changed everything.
This changed the world.
That's
Well, for me.
a little extreme.
It will one day.
One day will.
It only has like 100.
Don't give it away yet.
What?
We're going to talk about that.
All right.
But that's a big part of today.
That's later?
That's later.
Well, you're the one that runs the show, so I just talk and you just have to keep me in check.
Well, Jamie, where are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about the naval establishments.
Sorry, you want to do that one again?
The naval establishments. Discovery Harbour.
Discovery Harbour in good old Penetanguishene, Ontario.
Well, the home of King's Wharf.
Absolutely.
And Captain Robert's Table, which we didn't actually get to see either of those places.
We did not
Or
do
the
a
boats,
proper
actually.
investigation. There is still so much more
There's a lot of that
Discovery
place we
Harbour
gotta go see.
to explore,
To discover.
and we still did a lot of that area.
You did, yeah.
So before we kind of get started into chatting a bit about the episode and some of the stuff that we experienced, some of the stuff that other people have experienced, and just some other goodness, I'm just going to say a couple things about Discovery Harbour for those.
Let me sit back and listen.
for those of our audience who have never heard of this location.
The naval establishment.
Or the naval establishment. So the roots of Discovery Harbour date back to 1793. See, now I can't talk. The roots of Discovery Harbour date back to 1793 when Sir John Graves Simcoe scouted Penetanguishene Bay as a strategic site for a naval base. The steep-sided Deepwater Bay would be an ideal spot to protect and maintain ships. The bay could also serve as a vital transport link from York, Toronto, to the northwest. The War of 1812 between Britain and the United States sparked the construction of an active naval dockyard at Penetanguishene. By 1817, the British Navy, anxious to patrol and protect the upper Great Lakes against a future attack, began building the naval establishment. So I can go on and on about the history about this spot. If you actually go to discoveryharbour.on.ca, which is actually Discovery Harbour's site, they have an extraordinary history of the building and of the location there. So I highly encourage you to check it out. But in kind of the bigger picture of it all, is that it's quite a large property.
It is
having
very big.
been a naval establishment. There's multiple houses on site. There's a cemetery. There's different barracks. There's a bunch to explore. So
Tons and tons and tons.
tons and tons. And so kind of rewinding back for us with this episode is at Discovery Harbour, they often do ghost tours. They do them a lot during the summertime, and they
just finished.
They just finished yesterday their ghost tours for the year. However, have no fear. We're about to get into Pumpkin Inferno season for them.
What's that?
Pumpkin Inferno is there's a bunch of I believe it's local artists that carve pumpkins, and they're terrifying and amazing and beautiful, that are put all throughout Discovery Harbour, and so you can still do the ghost walk with even more eeriness.
Do they do the ghost walk? I know they do like the terror zone. They make it almost like the like Wonderland, but without the rides.
Yeah, you don't need it because there's just so much going on there.
Scare them up.
But so it's a pretty awesome location. It's beautiful. It's right on Georgian Bay, so we had the privilege of going there basically as the sunset. So not only was it terrifying because of that, but it was actually beautiful as the sunset.
It was beautiful.
But what was interesting so basically with Discovery Harbour, there's been lots of sightings. There's been, when we walked in, they actually have a wall of pictures people have taken. There's lots of orbs people have seen. There's a picture of like a skull in it that someone took.
Pretty terrifying, that one, actually.
There's a picture that someone actually captured in reflection of a mirror in a building we got to go into that will have a woman in a blue dress.
No, we didn't see that, though, did we?
We didn't see that. We didn't see the picture, but it was, I did get this from a good source. It was actually an interview in our local metro paper. Simcoe.com is a way that you can access that article as well.
And there's an eerie, dark, shadowy figure that roams around there and just outside of the property that a lot of people have seen.
And a lot of people have actually seen kids looking out the window in one building in particular that we'll touch on in just a little bit as well.
I was about to say it.
There's also been a lot of experience with a ghost actually at the location, the big location for us, where we had lots of stuff happen for us, and rumored to actually be, which I'll talk about his story in just a moment, Private Drury, who there's a lot of people that have seen him, including young children. There was one story that I read that I guess I'll touch on in a bit, where a little boy would actually wouldn't go into the building, kept grabbing his mom, and she's like, "Why didn't you want to go in?" And he said, "The man doesn't want us to go in." So that touches on another thing about kids and ghosts that we'll talk about in just a bit.
A little foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. But needless to say, that those are a lot of experiences that some of which we heard before we did our investigation, some of which we kind of heard about after investigation, after we'd had our own experiences,
which were a lot.
Was a lot. So we started our journey. Do you want to start us off with kind of how?
Oh, you're doing a good job.
Oh, thank you. So, going as it was our second episode, our second investigation, just before we jump into kind of what we experienced, because, the audience can see some of that on the actual episode, but what did you feel was the biggest difference between like Penetang Museum and Discovery Harbour? Like there were two. What were your feelings? This is a good one. What were your feelings before that investigation?
Before the investigation, I was just excited because that was one of the known. Like I said before, the museum was kind of like a little bit off the radar. Like it wasn't one of those like top like 3 ones that you hear a lot about. And Discovery Harbour is like arguably maybe the most haunted location of the bunch. So it was definitely really exciting to go there before just knowing a little bit of the history and a few of the stories, and just knowing that we were going to get a guided tour, kind of behind the scenes type thing, some access to some places that some people wouldn't see. So yeah, before was pretty exciting. And during was even more.
Well, I remember us being really nervous because we just had 2 days of exploring and investigating and interviewing.
Right.
And we were like, we're about to go do a walking tour. We were probably half an hour before all the walking tours started. So we were like, people are going to be on our heels. How are we going to do proper investigation? What if we don't find anything? What if nothing happens?
I forgot about all that.
We did like 30 takes of our intro, losing light. It was just I had straightened my hair because I thought that was a good idea, which was not.
Why did
that it became a wavy? I just remember this. These were the moments, the feelings before, and it's funny. And anyone who's seen the show has listened to this podcast. We talked about. I am a type 1 diabetic. My sugars from the moment we got there were wonky. And again, that could have no incidence at all, but it was just. The feelings associated with low sugar and the feelings associated when you're in presence of a spirit can be very similar. So my entire evening felt strange.
Right.
And if you're watching the episode, you see I'm carrying around my bag of stuff. I've also learned to, number one, pack lighter during investigations. And number two is just because, as a diabetic, I have to have all my supplies in case I get a low. And when you're on a walking tour, you need snacks and all that jazz. Anyways,
run back to the snack bar.
No. So when we started our investigation, we had an incredible guide who'd been working with Discovery Harbour for some time. Candace, exactly. And she kind of had a little powwow with one of her colleagues, just giving him a bit of a rundown, which we didn't hear the details about until a bit later into the walk. So we started on our walk. We did, our traditional rock ceremony, protection ceremony. And, we started walking along, and we got to the first couple buildings. And in these buildings was actually from that first building, Erica, who's part of our team, she had already captured orbs within photograph. And we walked into the building that was originally... they had said that there was the reflection of the picture.
Yeah.
And do you remember some of the stories that Candace had shared with us? Do you remember any of those?
Well, I believe that, right off the bat, the doors are closed, right?
Yeah.
For there. So they were about to do the tour. So the conversation was that she had with her colleague was that all the buildings the doors are open and they're ready to go. Lights are there, like they're just ready for you. And of course, the first building we walk up to, the doors are closed, not looking like anybody should be in them.
And there was they had little lanterns all around, and some of them were out already.
Yeah.
But they had been lit. But I remember because it was the second or third building we went to. She just kind of almost went white, and she seemed not herself. And I was like, is everything okay? She's like, well, I was talking to the gentleman's nickname is Surf, and was like, and he was telling me, don't worry about unlocking into the buildings because they're all going to be open when you go on your tour because you're first we've set it up for you. She's like, we've had to open every single door.
Yeah.
So when the tour guide is giving you can't fake a turning white thing.
No, you can't really do
that scare factor.
I've tried. It's hard to do.
Yeah, and within those rooms, we captured some more orbs. There was definitely uncomfortable feelings in the building, in those little kind of old homes, or not huts. They were small houses for the soldiers, I guess. Yeah. And she was sharing some stories with us about how people would go and set things up for the new season, and they would come back and all the stuff had been taken off the shelves and there was no one there, or there was a lot of stuff that they had experienced in there.
A lot of weird things that happen while no one's around.
Yeah.
It was interesting with Candace again. I believe she was someone that said that she was a non-believer, and it really, really turned a little. It seemed to be her actions indicated different. The Keating house, which I know that you didn't mention earlier.
That in a sec.
Oh, okay.
No, but I was just gonna say, I think. Think about it this way. If you let's say you worked there, or you worked somewhere, let's maybe not put there. Let's say you worked at a place that there was a lot of stuff that you couldn't explain happening.
Yeah.
Some people may find it more comforting to just
we've gone through that before.
Acknowledge
of course I don't exist because I can't, because then I would never sleep. But yeah, so go on.
No, I was just I was going to. So from there, we walked over to the cemetery. Was there anything that really popped out to you? There was just that mini cemetery there.
Well, the little story there was interesting. The two brothers, right? Two brothers, and one had died. One froze. With the other one going to get help, I believe, was the story. Do you recall?
I don't recall off the top of my head on that one.
So anyway, there's two brothers, and I'm pretty sure the one died. I think they might have ended up both dying. Anyway, it was weird to have just the little grave site right there.
So only the two.
Yeah, just the one or two people.
Mm-hmm. Was there three?
And I can't remember. We did film quite a bit there. It did seem like there was a lot of orbs on the night vision camera. It seemed like there was a lot going on. I mean, they could have been bugs. Mm-hmm. I didn't find the bugs to be very bad that night.
No,
I mean,
either.
That area there is a lot. And they weren't flying, you know what I mean? Some of them were coming, disappearing, and
well, it's funny
they looked orby to me.
It's funny that you bring that up, because I found an interesting article about different kinds of ghosts that as I was reading it, was like, I feel like we saw a lot of those that night and didn't even realize it. So this is actually ghostsandgravestones.com. Put, 5 most, it's an article called, or a write-up, 5 most common types of ghosts and spirits. The first is the interactive personality. The most common of all ghosts spotted is usually of a deceased person, someone you know, a family member, or perhaps even a fictional historical figure.
Fictional.
Did I say fictional?
You did.
Not fictional, just historical. Or just an illusion in your mind.
Just complete.
A cartoon appears.
Casper, a few of them.
Yeah, no, not Casper, historical.
Oh, okay.
These ghosts can be friendly or not.
Fictional historical. I don't know why they...
I don't know. I think I'm just...
Delusional.
Literature brain.
Weird.
The ghosts can be friendly or not, but often show themselves to others in a variety of ways. They can become visible. They can speak or make noises. They can touch you and or even emit an odor like perfume or cigar smoke, which reminded me of Jerome, to let you know they are there. Experts say that this type of ghost retains its former personality of when they were alive and can feel emotions, and often they are visiting you to comfort you or let you know something important. So if you happen to see a lost loved one, chances are they are there because they feel you want or need to see them. So I feel like we interact with a lot that spirit in our investigations typically. We'll talk about one of them in a bit.
Okay.
The other is the ectoplasm or ectomist.
Ooh.
And this is the one that I think because we had a lot of those times that on camera, it looked like we had a lot of bugs, or there was a lot of fog, or there was a lot of something that we couldn't really explain, because if you were not looking through the camera, it didn't feel like those things.
There was a ton of fog.
Like when we were walking down to the last location there.
And it was weird fog. It wasn't just like a fog. It was like little
it was
spots.
strange.
It looked almost like steam, but not really. Yeah, it was. Oh, that's interesting.
So
I love how you
it says,
something
ever
new.
seen a mist or a fog that almost looked like it's swirling? Which we thought it almost looked like bugs. If so, you may be witnessing what personal investigators deem as an ectomist or ghostly mist. This vaporous cloud usually appears several feet off the ground and can move swiftly or simply stay still, almost like it's orbiting. These ghostly encounters have been captured on many videos and in photographs and can be white, gray, or even black. Although they can simply appear this way, linger, then move away quickly, sometimes ectoplasms appear before becoming a full-bodied apparition. Many people have witnessed them outdoors, in graveyards, battlefields, and historical sites.
Well,
And
there
the two locations
you go.
were, because if you recall, we were walking to the captain's barracks or captain's lodge at quarters. She mentioned that used to be almost like a graveyard.
Yep.
So that's interesting.
That's funny.
So the third is the poltergeist. Perhaps one of the most popular terms most of us have heard when it comes to ghosts. The word poltergeist actually means noisy ghost, because it is said to have the ability to move or knock things over, make noise, and manipulate the physical environment. While many of us had heard the term before, a poltergeist is actually one of the rarest forms of hauntings and rarest. And to many, the most terrifying. Loud knocking sounds, lights turning on and off, doors slamming, even fires breaking out mysteriously have all been attributed to this type of spiritual disturbance. Another frightening aspect of the poltergeist is that the event usually starts out slowly and mildly and then begins to intensify. And while many times poltergeist activity is harmless and ends quickly, they have become known to actually become dangerous. Some experts explain it as a mass form of energy that is a living person explained it as a mass form of energy that a living person is controlling unknowingly. Whatever the cause may be, poltergeists have caught the attention of paranormal enthusiasts and experts, scientists, and many others who are just plain curious. Personally, I'm very happy. Knock on wood, we have not experienced that yet.
Yeah, well,
not to that extreme.
Not not in a violent kind of way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think we have experienced poltergeist in a certain extent.
Yeah, I would agree by some of the energies, but I mean, we've thankfully at this point haven't been in those situations.
Noisy ghosts
we've experienced, but not.
But yeah, at least not violent. Or that's interesting that it's almost brought on by
the person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The fourth is orbs, which we spoke about. Orbs are probably the most photographed type of anomaly. They appear as a transparent or translucent ball of light that is hovering around over the ground. Many ghost hunters and guests on ghosts and gravestones, which is what this article is from, are surprised to see them in their photos. It is believed that orbs are the soul of a human or even an animal that has died and is traveling around from one place to another. The circular shape they take on makes it easier for them to move around and is often the first state they appear in before they become a full-bodied apparition. If you're lucky enough to capture an orb on video, you'll be amazed by how fast they can move, which they can. It's crazy. Yep. In photographs, they are usually white, but can be blue as well. And I actually have read an article before where there's actually even other kind of colors that the orbs can be, which we'll talk about in another episode. And the final one is funnel ghosts.
Funnel ghosts. Funnel cake.
Most often spotted in homes or old historical buildings, the funnel ghost or vortex is frequently associated with a cold spot. They usually take on the shape of a swirling funnel, and most paranormal experts believe they are a loved one returning for a visit or even a former resident of the home. Appearing as a wisp of light or a swirling spiral of light, they're often caught in photographs or on video.
Interesting. You always finding some cool stuff.
Well, I was thinking with this episode, there was just a lot of different things that we experienced.
Was a lot of different things
that was so different from all the other ones.
There's some stuff that wasn't even mentioned in there that I don't even know what they are.
Well, we have time to find out.
Do we?
I hope so. So we chatted a bit about, the doors that were supposed to be closed doors that were supposed to be open that were closed.
Yep.
We talked a bit about some of the orbs that we captured.
Yep.
Very often, pretty much every location on Discovery Harbour, I felt the feeling of being watched or feeling
Constantly.
like something. Like I took a lot of pictures because I kept feeling like there was something. There was a couple of questionable pictures I took in windows where I can't be certain that there's not something there.
I think you even got like some of that foggy, misty type stuff. I got pictures.
Well, now I have a bit of a clear understanding what that is. So we talked about the story of stuff disappearing. There was lots of cold spots. So our next location that we went to was where things started to get, I think, interesting, like real interesting.
When the fun started.
When we got to the Keating home.
The Keating home.
Did you want to talk a little? You have a bit more knowledge, I think, on the history on that.
I don't have a ton of knowledge. What I do recall is that the Keating home was where they had a family, one of the only like wives and children that were at the. They were actually on the grounds. And what had happened, I believe, was they had to be sent away.
I believe what happened is when Keating is his last name, when he passed away, the family basically was told that they couldn't no longer stay. But that was the building that when we walked in felt a little weird to me. That was the first time that Candace had basically said, "I'm not going upstairs with you. Have fun."
That's what I was getting at earlier. Is she would not come upstairs. She refused to go upstairs in that building.
And she wouldn't tell us why.
Yeah, she just wouldn't do it. Upstairs was super interesting. Really weird feeling. They had like the 2 bedrooms upstairs. One of the first things that kind of happened there, which we thought was weird, maybe it's kind of stupid, but we went into the room and then like the bedroom and looked around and then went into the other bedroom and then I guess we went back. And we went back, there was like it's like almost like a toy chair on the bed, on the middle of the bed that we're certain was not there before. We would have noticed. And also it looked like there was a wet spot on the bed, which looked like a wet
spot at one point, but there was no actual like moisture. It also looked, if you look at a bed, and when someone lies on a bed, there's an indent, and it looked like there was an indent, but it was not. It didn't. It looked like the indent changed.
Yeah,
like there was something lying on it that moved off at some point, or like it wasn't a permanent indent. You know when you've got a bed for a long time or a chair for a long time and they just get that permanent indent?
Yeah.
It wasn't quite that.
Right.
And I just remember feeling that energy, and we actually did a pendulum there because we felt that. This was before we had our meter. But within this conversation, if you've seen the show, you'll see that somehow I think I tend to connect with a lot of kids.
You do.
And because we had the little chair, because we had seen, like, it just felt like there was a child's energy in there. We did a pendulum. We actually did connect to a little boy. And again, having heard more stories after, there has been sightings of kids in the window. I mentioned that before. That's one of the buildings, the main building, I believe, that those sightings have happened.
The one where people typically see someone upstairs in the window, and a lot.
Which is the same. We should comment that is the same room of which we were doing.
Yes.
We had this experience.
Yes.
So we did a pendulum. We did connect with a little boy. And the saddest part of it, you can watch the episode to kind of see the whole thing, but was that he didn't want us to go.
Yeah.
And that was so hard because, it's all yes or no questions when you do pendulum. And, it was, are you happy here is usually a question I ask. And I often will say, do you want us to go? And usually they're cool with us going. But this little child did not want us to leave. So that was hard, especially being a parent. You're like, can you imagine being basically trapped somewhere and not understanding and not being able to go?
Yeah.
So we kind of went in the other room. We didn't really do. We came back after, and I'll touch on that maybe on the way back, or I guess we'll touch about the same building twice.
Sure.
So
yeah, we were going back after.
Before we went back though, we'd come downstairs, and the couple moms and pops in the group were quite somber after that experience, and we mentioned to Candace like, oh, we connected with a little boy, and she actually mentioned at this point that there had been other people that had encountered and heard of this little boy that didn't want to go, and so it was oddly not satisfying, it's terrible, but like, as we're still learning and figuring things out, and you're trying to, ruling out whether, I don't know, your mind playing tricks on you when someone else is feeling the same thing. It gives you a little bit.
Connected the dots a bit.
Yeah.
And then I had that, what I don't even know what it was, like when I booked it out of there because I went into the other room downstairs, and it felt like something was chasing me.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying.
Yeah, I remember we have it was on video.
Everybody's outside, and I don't know what I was doing. I think I went in there with the other camera.
We watched that playback quite a bit, trying to see because it almost looked like there was something there.
It did look like there was something that followed me out, but I think when we looked at it closely, I think it was the other camera. I don't know. It was super weird. It looks like there's something.
We couldn't be certain. That's why I didn't make it in the episode, but Jamie may or may not have been chased out of the Keating home by a spirit.
Something, yeah.
So we did come. So we went somewhere else, but we'll kind of just talk back on when we came back.
Okay.
Nothing, I think, extraordinary necessarily happened. I do remember there was a bit of a mist in it, though, because remember it seemed really dusty, and it smelled like fire. It smelled like a wood burning oven.
It seemed very, and it did seem super misty in there. There was almost
we did capture some orbs in the pictures. One of the pictures that we took. Yeah. For surezies, I see.
For surezies,
I see a little boy.
Technical term, for surezies.
For surezies, guys. Paranormal Dictionary, you're welcome. For surezies is added. But like in that, I will like.
Yeah.
I swear.
I know you're. Yeah.
And then there was the other picture I took that we almost see a man standing, like, again.
There's some stuff.
Yeah, there's some foot pictures. We'll post it maybe alongside the podcast, and you guys can let us know what you think, or you think that Deanna's crazy.
I think you're crazy.
But it's that was a pretty interesting building.
Yeah, big time. And it wasn't even the most interesting.
No,
building.
It wasn't. So we carried on our journey after the first experience of Keating.
Walk with me.
Came back. And this was where we passed along towards the what's the proper term for that? The captain's
quarters, I think.
I just want to make sure I'm saying it properly, but that's all right.
Lieutenant's barracks. I don't know.
Anywho diddle. We walked along the path to that, and that's where we were saying we saw that almost like that mist or that fog, which we were told used to be a graveyard. There was some death there. And we arrived at a building once again that was supposed to be open. And do you remember what happened there?
I remember. This was supposed to be open, and the alarm was actually set. Doors were closed, and she had to unarm the building, which doesn't make sense. Like it was like
she
the
said
main.
She'd never done before. Had to do before.
It was like the main building where they do the tours, so it wouldn't have been locked. It doesn't make any sense. She asked. She was already freaked out by that point that she had to go in there. That it was locked and an alarm set. Like it didn't make any sense.
And what's interesting about the alarm in this building is because this building is in mint condition. They take very, very good care of all of the buildings on site, but this one specifically is because they can't really let any light damage affect any of the artifacts within, like inside the building. They have these shutters. They're pretty heavy that must be closed in order for the alarm to go off, like for them to lock up for the night. And if they open, because again, being concerned about break and entry, if I'm correct, the alarm in theory goes off.
Go off.
So when we walked in, she was having issues with the alarm that she somehow had to undo for some reason that wasn't working. And one of the shutters in the kitchen was open. Not fully open, but open enough. And she mentioned that this is a common thing that happens in there where they can't explain why these shutters, the staff is trained to make sure that those doors are closed.
We saw
Stuff
one
moved.
open.
We saw one open.
We saw the shutters open.
We did. So that was already, we're walking in, we're like, we've been in here for 2 seconds. It's already
That place
stuff
was
happening.
wild.
It was so cold in there. I remember feeling like from the moment that I was like, I feel like we shouldn't be in here long. And by this point, we were starting to get some of the tour people kind of not on our heels, but close enough.
Starting to get on our
So,
tails.
we're feeling a little bit anxious too, because we want to, like, this is a spot. We, want to see what kind of happens. So I stress again that we were the first group. There was no tour groups ahead of us. So we carried on into the dining area. And what happened there, Jamie?
Well, we had the thermal camera out, and there was these footprints at the end of the table, like 2 distinct, like glowing footprints in the thermal cam, and it was just wild. We kind of like did some scientific like research-ish on it. Like, I mean, not really. I was putting my own like
Hands
body heat near it to see if it will, like, what it would do or anything. So you could see my body heat on the floor for a little bit, but it would disappear and the footprints would still be there.
It was almost like there
really
was something was standing there, but that was the energy. That was all we could see.
Yeah.
And then we actually ended up seeing some on the other side of the table as well. What's interesting about this dining area is we were discussing it, and this was the captain's quarters. And at that time, there would have been, like, because there was the servants' quarters had actually been turned into washrooms, so there would have been servants or the people that serve the meal or what have you. And I mean, if you are even watch just some historical television, like the butler or whoever will stand at the end of the table with with the napkin over the shoulder to make sure that everyone's got what they need. And it just felt like that was perhaps there was someone watching it.
Yeah.
And it might not have been that, but like that's just the energy I got from it.
Me too.
And then on the other side, actually where we saw the feet, there was a small little sliver where someone would have been basically potentially with a weapon for protection.
Like a gun hole.
So again, the feet were facing the direction of looking out the window.
Yeah.
So I stress that, our team hadn't stood in that place for a long period of time.
We just walked into the room.
We were the first ones in there. And within that area too, there'd been stories about, I'll talk about the spirit that is allegedly there, about this energy or this spirit that actually would be throwing stuff down the stairs across, that you could hear things moving up above.
The chess piece.
And the chess piece was in the next room. So that was, there was a missing chess. There's a chess piece that often goes missing. There was a time that someone did a tour and the board got thrown across the room, or a chair got moved.
Chair upstairs.
Quite aggressively. Yeah. So we didn't have anything really in that room ourselves. Things started getting interesting as we started going towards the bedrooms. The first bedroom was where we saw the shutter open.
Move. Yeah. The shutter just opened while we were in there.
And I should comment that right after we found the footprints. Do you remember the thermal can just started being all wonky and like wouldn't turn on?
Yeah.
So
vaguely.
I had been holding the thermal camera at that point. So I had said to Nate, like, what's going on? Like, this isn't working. And it's very often on most of our locations, some sort of technology for no reason will stop working, or
pretty much always
sputter out, or the battery will drain, or it's weird. Like, it'll not work and then you walk out of the room and then it's working. Like,
the thermal camera has just stopped working on a few locations.
Yeah. That being said, at this point, we had a tour group come through, and we kind of had to hide. And we'll talk about the one, because then I'll talk about what I captured during that once I finally got it working. So we got to the room. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
I'm excited. I just want to go back.
Okay, do you want to?
No, go.
No, I want you to tell the story.
No,
I've been talking
I don't even know which one we're talking about.
We're talking about the one
spot,
the big one, the big bedroom spot, the room that I started walking into by myself.
So it's dark. We walk into the bedroom. Deanna's got the thermal camera working. I'm behind her. No one's in the room yet, and I see something walk in front of us on the thermal camera.
I thought it was a bedpost.
She didn't see anything. Yeah, she didn't see anything. I've been known to see stuff on the thermal camera that's just a reflection or whatever. But I distinctly saw something walk right in front of us. And if you watch the episode or the clip, like there's a clip of this online, I say like, what was that right off the bat? I knew I saw something, but you didn't say anything, and it didn't seem like anything. It was fairly quick. It wasn't super quick. Like I saw something walk in front of us. I was positive.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. We just kept going, and you didn't see it, so we didn't.
Well,
really
what
have
happened
a chance
was
to,
we were still so new with the thermal cam. I think that was the first time we'd ever used it.
Second.
I'm going to be honest, because I didn't know what I was looking for the first time. I didn't know what colors were what, and I was just trying to differentiate. So when we first walked into that room, you actually hear me say, Jamie, come with me. I don't want to go by myself, which was true. I was terrified. There had already been enough happening in that building. And I just felt this energy of like, I shouldn't be alone in this building. Like there was someone that didn't want me there. I don't know if it was because I was a woman. I don't know if it felt threatened. I don't know. We are always quite respectful in space. But I remember seeing something. But in my brain, because remember, I'm still the rationalizer. I have to rationalize things out.
Here we go.
I thought it was the bedpost.
Right.
But then I remembered seeing a bit of a movement, but it happened so quickly that it didn't register. And then in the moment of us trying to be like, was it? Wasn't it? Once we played it back, we saw it actually crossed again.
Yeah.
So it actually crossed the screen twice, and it appears out of nowhere almost.
It
crosses through almost like it's sitting in the bed and then comes back through again and then disappears. So
to me, that's like the most evidence, like, well, obviously that we've ever captured, but it's like I don't see how there's any argument to be made of what that could possibly be. You see this thing manifest and walk past it. You can almost see a face.
Yeah. It looks like the shape.
It looks
of
like a little
man.
kid.
To me, it looked like a man.
I thought it looked like a kid
because it just the height and it looked like an adult. I mean, it's hard. Like
it's
an
something
apparition.
It's
a human. It's a human being or a former human being.
Yeah, and it comes kind of out of nowhere and it walks right past us.
Yeah,
it's so cool. I think it's the coolest thing in the world.
Well, what's funny is I was watching more of the playback. And in the hallway right after I got that, I don't know if it was right after we left that room or whether it was not long after I got going. Like I'm standing almost beside the wall.
Yeah, there's some on the wall.
And something walks by me.
Yeah.
And walks by me in a way that it could not have been one of our team members because I remember where I was standing and there was not enough room. And I remember being alone in that moment.
Now, is that on the episode? I remember seeing that too.
I don't think it was because it wasn't as clear as that one. And guys, this episode, we got so much stuff. It just literally didn't fit in that episode.
No, it's still a long episode.
Like, there's still like a 40-minute episode. So many pictures that haven't made it on yet that we'll definitely be posting and sharing with you guys because
so much happened.
It's nuts.
We got to go back with the meter. We didn't even have the meter.
That's true. So the one thing I wanted to mention about this location is I figured I'd give a little the suspected person that is staying there a little bit of a backstory on it. I'm not going to read the whole article. If you do want to read the whole article, it's an article called. Yeah. Okay. It's an article called Does a Ghost Haunt Penetanguishene's Discovery Harbour? It was written by Andrew Hind, October 31st, 2014. And you can go to simco.com to get this from the Midland Mirror. So, set the scene. It's New Year's Eve, 1839. It's a particularly frosty night. Cold winds swept in off Lake Huron and sliced through the thickest wool coat to chill flesh and bone beneath. Private Drury, a young British soldier, stood shivering uncontrollably at his post outside the officers' quarters at the military establishment in Penetanguishene. The lone sentry on duty that night, his resentment grew as the numbness in his fingers and toes advanced through the rest of his body. The officers themselves were all in town celebrating the arrival of the new year, but for Drury there was little to be joyful about. He was cold, tired, and miserable. So the article goes on just to say, basically he was kind of responsible for watching the barracks or watching everything while everyone was out of town in case there was an attack or what have you. He was a young guy. And he was freezing. Yep. So he went into the officers' quarters and just to find shelter from the cold and the wind. And he, as a young guy, coming from, he's youthful and impoverished community, and it's New Year's, he found himself a bottle of sherry. And he enjoyed the taste and had a little too much of it. He actually finished the whole bottle. And he went back out to his post in the freezing cold and ended up passing from a combination of exposure and
alcohol poisoning?
I don't know if it's necessarily alcohol poisoning, but I think probably passed out and didn't have a chance to go in and get warmed up. So since his death in 1839... Private Drury has never ventured far from the officers' quarters, but he's made his presence known to generations of staff and tourists alike. His presence is often presaged by, I don't know if I said that right, by a sudden and inexplicable drop in temperature. Through the summer era, though the summer air outside might be sweltering, visitors in the officers' quarters suddenly find their breath blowing out in frosty vapors, which I do remember that happened.
And there's no way.
And their skin goose pimpled with chill, which I also remember, just that energy and that feeling. And just kind of goes on to people feeling like they've seen him, staff. And there was, I don't know if it was Candace said for herself, but there was other employees that just like got a feeling, heard a sound and was just like, forget it, locked up and left the building.
They actually have the little thing, remember the little, his little quarter or his little where he was staying outside, which is super weird, like where he actually died. And as I mentioned, there was the story too of the young boy who wouldn't go into the building because he said that the man didn't want him to go in. So it's interesting because I feel like that makes for all of the things that we had in there, especially that bedroom. I feel like it very well could have been him and wanting his privacy, shall we say? For sure.
But yeah, I mean, that is, it's a lot. And that was quite the time that we had at Discovery Harbour.
Best, and we have to go back because there was just so much, and that was all within a 2-hour span.
I feel like it was no more than 3.
Yeah, I don't even think it was that. I feel it was like 2.5 hours.
And it was interesting because when we were leaving, we had there was I believe she was a medium who came up to us after and was just saying that she was actually blind, and she was actually saying that she was pointing to things for her sister to take pictures of, and her sister showed the camera, and every place there was an orb or something suspicious in the picture. So I gotta say, I mean, obviously we know that there is definitely something going on in Discovery Harbour.
No doubt.
I feel like we could just keep talking about this forever. But I mean, like, that set the bar pretty high. I feel like pretty high because I think from that point on, we'd experienced so much that now every episode past that, we were like, oh, I'm familiar with that feeling. Yeah. Oh, I'm familiar with this thing.
Every time we left another building, it was like, oh, I guess we didn't get anything. No ghost walked in front of us.
But, if you do want to see that footage, we will have it accessible. It is on YouTube right now. That's what Jamie was saying.
There's only like 150 views. I don't know how.
Because we haven't really pushed it enough, clearly.
Oh, it's not.
We'll have to show you guys because it still blows our mind. Still thinking about it gives me chills.
I want to know what other people see. Like, I think it's the most...
It's funny because I remember what I know at the end of the day. People are going to think what they're going to think. They may think we created it. But I'm telling you that I walked into a dark room and there was nothing there that I could see with my naked eye.
There was nothing there.
And then there was
manifests out of nowhere.
I know.
And it disappears.
I know this.
But it walks in front of us. I want somebody to tell me it's something different. So we're like, no, you know what? That's the chair farted and like what? You know?
I don't think so.
No, you don't think any scientists are saying that?
No, I think they're probably not. Who knows? I'm not a scientist.
I want to hear. I bet some people are going to be like, well, somebody's gonna have some kind of weird explanation for
Hey,
it.
I'm interested in hearing about it, and maybe you can come and be a guest on our podcast and tell us about it. If you have any stories about Discovery Harbour
Or
anywhere, we definitely would love to hear them. Be sure to check out Haunted Huronia on Bell 5, TV1, Channel 1 only. We've got a bunch of our episodes up there now.
Yeah, I think all of them.
I think all of them probably up there now. There's so much more excitement to come. I'm super excited for you guys to watch.
Guests next episode.
And we have guests next episode. We're going to hear about a place that we haven't been to yet.
Oh, that's exciting. One of the coolest stories I've ever heard, actually.
Don't tell me. I want it to be a surprise.
Oh, you don't even know it?
I don't.
Oh, wicked. Okay.
Yeah. So, thanks for tuning in to this episode.
You're like looking at me. You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks for the drive.
I'll always
Can I
be
get
here.
that down?
You got it.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in. Keep filling us in on what's going on. You can follow us on our social media platforms at Haunted Huronia. And what else, Jamie?
Stay scared.
Ooh, until next time, guys.